All right, folks, welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I am your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Don't forget, if you like the videos, to like them and to share them far and wide. We're everywhere on X, on Truth, on Getter, on YouTube, on Rumble. Of course, the best place to follow is always on Locals. peoplespundit.locals.com, peoplespundit.locals.com, where you would have known for years at this moment that today was always a day that was going to come. All right. I have some flashback videos we're going to roll through. And first and foremost, you know what? I will get rid. Yeah, let's roll this one first. All right. You may think this is a day where I'm gracious and I let some people go. No, that's not how I roll. You shit talk me all through whatever period. When the day comes, this is the day I tap dance on your fucking grave. Okay? This was always a day that was going to come no matter how much Hasbara was thrown into the system, etc., etc. This was not a matter of, well, until it was made into it, this was not a matter of who likes this person, who dislikes that one, who likes these people, who's this much of a hater. If there's a rise of this right wing or left wing anti-Semitism or hatred towards one group or another, that's bullshit. This was something that was inevitable because the older generation who believed in something that was relatively new in American history did not plant the seeds effectively of their worldview in future generations. It was a matter of age signal and age signal alone. This was going to happen. It just was not forecasted to happen until roughly the year, if you just looked at age signal, until roughly the year 2032, 2033. The reason why this trend has been accelerated is because of a series of bad decisions that certain people chose to make, which exacerbated an already existing trend. It accelerated an already existing trend. And what made it worse really is threefold. And we'll talk about that today. But first, we have to talk about what I'm talking about, right? What am I talking? What am I even talking? Well, if in case you didn't see the banner image of today's show, this is a very big deal. Israelis no longer ahead in Americans' Middle East sympathies. Now, you will recall that they were very, very barely ahead. I mean, it was a few points after being ahead in the last time that we can. Gallup is the goal. They started this question. All right. So every pollster, including myself, who has done this question ever since, has been really following the Gallup model. We do have a history of finding neither a little bit higher than Gallup. And I honestly can say that I think that our numbers are much, much more closer to reality than the overall registered voter population. Now, Gallup does do adults in their overall poll, then they have registered voters. I'm not sure they'll ever do likely voters again because they're out of the even approval rating business now. They were once upon a time out of the horse race business after the 2012 election when they forecasted Romney to win the popular vote by 1 point, which was only their second misfire since George Gallup started and beat the Literary Digest poll, and being the father of modern day public polling. All right. So they started this question, and deference really does have to be given to them on this, even though I think our own polling is probably more accurate. All right. But nevertheless, they have the longest trend history out of any public pollster. That image that you're looking at right here, before we even go further and talk about the numbers, look at this trend. You have to be an idiot to just decide, well, it's the universities teaching and poisoning our children and to hate Israel, and it's the media, and it's this. No, it's not. Is that some part of it somewhere? Yeah, okay. But this trend, they've been dealing with that for years. American youth have been dealing with this in institutions like big, higher education and academia for decades. The media has been generally pro-Israel until, I would say, there's rising Palestinian sentiment on the left, which we saw in the polling, and some media reflected that. But nothing has impacted these numbers more than Israel themselves. and the decisions that they have decided to make. Look, after the October 2023 attack by Hamas on Israel, we did see, even in our own polling, a retreat back to supporting Israel. Sympathies shot up in our own polling, which I'll show you the November poll. We have to go back and discuss this. But it was their reaction to that and their policy in Gaza that began to speed this up. Although even that, even though in our polling we showed a plurality believed that what was going on in Gaza was a genocide between 8 and 11 points last year. Even though that was the case, it still didn't exacerbate the trend fully this much. Their PR strategy on top of that did. Calling everybody an anti-Semite, which I got attacked by a lunatic host on Fox News for saying, creates more anti-Semites. Megyn Kelly was right about that. Now, is it going to create a vast, is this like some epidemic in America, rising anti-Semite? No, it's not. What is an epidemic of younger Americans below the age of 50, and now according to Gallup, it's 55, it's gone even higher now, believing that their needs are not being put first. So what happened last year to change a lot of views, even more on the right than we saw in the trend, was this, and I don't want to get ahead of myself because we have videos pointing this out, was a feeling that Israel put themselves before the needs of the American people. Israel put their own needs ahead of the needs of the American people, and Donald Trump took a hit politically by allowing them to do it. Bombing Iran was a pivot point in Trump's second administration. That is when his numbers really completely started to tank. That is when he lost the cracks in the younger voter after the Epstein mishandling of the Epstein situation, all of that. Bombing Iran was the worst possible thing he could have done. They wanted him to, okay, we don't like what you're saying on Epstein, but now pivot back to the domestic agenda and all the things we elected you to do. And he was doing a fantastic job for the first 3 to 5 months. But he did the worst possible thing, and how he himself reacted to it created this resentment. I wouldn't call it anti-Semitism, but I would call it resentment. And now Israel is toxic. And by the way, it wasn't always known to be the case, which is the point of me rolling all of the video I'm going to roll in a second. But let's get to it and see first what Gallup is saying. 41% of Americans now say they sympathize more with the Palestinians in the Middle East situation, while 36% sympathize more with the Israelis. I've got to go ahead and poll this now. I've got to do it because my intention was to kind of lay off them for a little bit. I knew it was going to be bad. And contrary to what my supremacist critics have to say, not dying to pile on Israel's bad situation. But I did think it was important for the vice president and the president to know the political trap they are walking into. The 5% point difference is not statistically significant, but it contrasts with a clear lead for the Israelis only a year ago, 46-33, and a larger lead over the prior 24 years. So understand, again, even Gallup is backing up what we're saying here, which is it wasn't only the Gaza situation. Did that start it? Like, holy shit, this is a genocide. What the fuck are they doing? Like, yes, of course. But that's not the sum total of why this happened. From 2001 to 2025, Israelis consistently held double-digit leads in American Middle East sympathies, with the gap averaging 43 points between 2001 and 2018. Now, we did not poll this question like that back then. The oldest one that we could find was in 2016, because back then the media was calling Trump an anti-Semite, if you guys remember, which I know is incredibly difficult to picture now. But back then, the media was actually saying Donald Trump was a Jew hater. However, public opinion began narrowing in 2019, several years before the October 7, 2023 Hamas attack on Israel and the subsequent war in Gaza. And I think that's important to note, because again, there was an age signal, period. And I think this correlates with a trend in younger, especially on the right. There's a big break between them and the Fox boomer cons on the fact that, listen, our country is in deep, deep trouble. A lot of them do blame Israel for the Iraq war. I mean, how could you argue with them? Bibi Netanyahu lobbied for the Iraq war here in the United States. Megyn Kelly last night with her interview with Tucker Carlson played 30 years worth of footage with Bibi Netanyahu advocating for us to have some war, some conflict in the Middle East. They don't like it. They don't want war at all. They want American politicians to focus on American problems. Why? Because they don't have wealth and land and investments the way that Fox boomer cons do. They don't have it. Boomers squandered their inheritance. They don't have the luxury of making the same mistake over and over again. And frankly, it's starting to piss me off how thick-headed some people can be. These are supposed to be your fellow Americans. They're not lazy. They're not defaulting on their student loans because they took fucking arts and crafts in college. A privileged American who studies art history from a well-known family has a lower default rate than an average citizen who goes and studies for STEM. Go look it up. The St. Louis Fed does a wonderful job tracking this stuff. The system is rigged. They don't have shit. What they did inherit was almost $40 trillion in debt. Epidemic drug addiction. Systemic, we'll call it, disadvantages in the system. I'm not in their age group. I'm not advocating that because I'm trying to explain away my, it's real. I'm in that generation that saw this happen, and I'm in the middle of it. You can't exactly go take your application into the CEO of Hewlett Packard and say, sir, can I have this job? It doesn't work that way. And even if you did pay 6 figures for a STEM degree, truth is, some neocon probably sold it away in an H-1B visa scam. Back to the numbers at hand. All right. Right. Even before American Sympathies, that is the trend. You can see it. Listen, again, for years now, we've been talking about this. I'm going to go back. We're going to play some old clips, especially ones dealing with the period between last summer and the fall, which is very, very, very important. This even still is when we started to note, okay, there's an acceleration in this trend. Something is really wrong here. And even we did this even before Gallup began to really show it and express it. As is typical for this trend, a large segment of Americans express no partiality toward the two sides in the Middle East conflict. We have a larger percentage in our polling that always say that. It's just, I think it's a methodology difference with Gallup. I think we're probably grabbing, I'm not trying to be a dick. We're probably grabbing a more representative sample of the overall registered voter population, where I believe, which is going to be more opinionated. Whereas I believe Gallup is falling into the trap many other pollsters fall into, and telltale is by their approval ratings, even though they're not releasing them anymore, which is that they are only connecting with higher interest voters. They don't represent the entire electorate. Gallup surveys tend to be very large, and it takes a long time to complete them, to complete the interview. And because of that, they tend to get more high interest people compared to others who are not, which is much more relevant. So anyway, 4% say that they sympathize with both equally. Ours is, the last time we did it, was higher. Again, it was 19%. Again, I think that's probably more accurate. 9% say that they have sympathies with neither, and 10% say they have no opinion. We don't offer no opinion, which is also part of that. So for us, it was 30%, 29.9% who said neither. And I think that is, guys, if Think about your own circles, your own social circles, maybe. If you have kids, think about, maybe your kids go to dance or some sport or something like that. Think about the parents you talk to in those groups. It's almost assuredly more accurate that 3 in 10 Americans really don't care at all. They have sympathies toward neither. All right. And then 1 in 5 probably say something around the effect that they, well, both. It's a bad situation. So again, I think we are more accurate, but it's the trend that matters with Gallup. And I think, again, we have to give deference to Gallup because they've done this so much longer than anybody else. But since Gallup's prior update on this measure in February of 2025, a U.S. brokered ceasefire took effect on the 10th of October in 2025, right? The first phase of the ceasefire, et cetera, was contingent upon the release of Israeli hostages. What happened? Israel then went and bombed Hamas in some... Look, Israel is doing things in an attempt to start wars. This is a great example. They tried to sabotage the ceasefire, even though Egyptian scientists came in to try to help them identify bodies. When you look at pictures of Gaza, and my vets out there, come on, what I'm about to say is true. It's not going to take a week to identify body parts. All right. It took a year and a half for my wife to have her cousin identified after 9/11. When you destroy a place the way that Israel has basically razed Gaza to the ground, when you do that, you're not going in and pulling out whole parts of people or even a fucking thumb for that matter. During that ceasefire, you had Egyptian scientists come and try to help the Palestinians identify people out of blood splatter and everything. Some of the most sophisticated techniques that they have out there in that region of the world. And it wasn't good enough. They didn't get bodies in time, so they just started shooting again. Like that. That's what happened. Why am I saying this? To attack Israel? No. Americans see this and they just don't believe the fox slop that they used to believe. TikTok, which is why Larry Ellison, was, and why the administration let Larry Ellison. If I have time, I will tell you a private story. Glenn Greenwald, by the way, if you want to call me, I will tell you exactly how that went down because I was there for it. All right. They didn't think, okay, it's a new world. We can't get away with certain things. People aren't happy with this behavior. Let's stop for a second. Let's pause. Let's stop with the settlements. Let's stop with the evictions. Let's stop with the murders, right? Like they didn't think that. Instead, their mindset was, you know what? Barry Weiss is on our side. She's going to take over CBS and she's going to be a gatekeeper for us. We're going to use our power in the administration, even though nobody gave a shit that the Chinese used TikTok to steal the election for Joe Biden. Okay. Nobody cared about that. But God forbid it may be viewed as responsible towards changing sentiment in America toward Israel. And then, holy shit, Larry Ellison has to buy TikTok. I mean, it's unbelievable. That was their mindset. The right, the so-called right, censor views and filter information. I thought they just won an election arguing that's wrong. But apparently they're frauds. Enough money in politics can buy you a lot. Can buy you a lot of principles. In terms of Americans' separate views, their Palestinians are still trailing when they say, what's your, do you have and we find this too, favorable versus unfavorable, versus Palestinian territories versus Israel as a country, which is a big part of this. Listen, Israel, if you want to survive after Donald Trump's not president anymore, you need to get rid of Netanyahu. People don't like him. Americans they don't have a problem with you. They have a problem with your government. They don't have and we understand that he's only elected with 35% of the vote. He's not winning huge landslides, and he puts together a governing coalition. But Netanyahu is killing you throughout the world. Killing you. What are you going to do when Donald Trump's no longer president anymore? Because Marco Rubio will never be president, and J.D. Vance is not going to be like Donald Trump on this issue. So what are you going to do? They didn't think this through. The 57% of Americans in favor of the independent Palestinian state nearly matches a reading from 2003 as the highest Gallup has ever measured. Here's the biggest, this is a big deal. The bottom line is, guys, forever, it has always been the position of the U.S. government and the voter to support a two-state solution. Americans don't want a genocide of either side. They don't like killing. Here's the dirty, dirty, evil part about the Hasbara campaign that had been waged, which is responsible for a lot of this negative trend. It's designed to take advantage of who you are as Americans. Decent people, you don't like violence, you don't want a violent society. I mean, even though, yes, we play video games that are violent, but that's different level of violence, right? You like order, right? You prefer order. You want everyone to generally be treated as equals. This is the thing about Americans. We're idealistic. Unfortunately, that works against us a lot. Bad people know that that's true. And by the way, Jack Snyder, where is it? Myths of Empire. We're a myth-believing society, which is why lies about WMDs and 99% of the Muslim world shares our values. And it's bullshit. It's bullshit, but it sells because Americans want to believe that. We want to believe that liberty is the natural state for all people when it's not. Liberty is the natural state for our people. All right. I mean, that's just the truth. Bernard Bailyn did not write the ideological origins of the American Revolution about everybody. He wrote it about America. Even just across the pond, the French were doing it a little bit different. But we want to believe this because we want to believe the best in our fellow man. And unfortunately, it allows politicians to exploit us a bit. We believe it. We buy the bullshit. It's why we fall for one hoax after the other. Unfortunately, America is a myth-believing society. All right. In international relations, there's been a lot of work on this about why realism, which dominates academia, like as a school of thought, all right, our foreign policy is not realist by nature. It's usually either liberal internationalist or neoconservative, which they're all based on idealistic moralism bullshit when that's not the way the world works, but they do it for a reason. All right. So anyway, let's go back to an interview after we released a poll, which I think is important, back in November of, or no, maybe I should start because oh my God, this is August, isn't it? Oh Lord. Yeah, this is August. This is, okay. At the time, I was getting a lot of calls basically saying, hey, I need you to like come in and talk about opinions in Republicans' ranks about Israel. And when I went to do that with different groups of people, the Congress, by the way, between Mark and I's polling data, Congress had like this whole, well, the Republican side of it, this whole conference had this review of sympathies towards Israel on the right and where the trend is heading, and basically panicked and realized that Israel is not popular anymore and will be a problem for them. Not everyone believed it. Okay. That's not, I mean, it's important to realize like we're here now, but back then, not everyone believed it. And of course, what could be the only explanation that somebody would be trying to tell you about this trend when it's not true? It's not right. Well, of course, it must be because he's anti-Semitic. It must be that these pollsters hate Jews. It was the most outrageous shit I've ever run into. And I do just want to play a couple of clips to go back. This one's first, and then I will go back and do another. Stay focused here. I'm rolling these things. All right. I'll come back and give commentary in between them. But this is very, very important to remind everybody because this is what they did to everyone. Everyone. And Americans don't like to be browbeaten. First of all, browbeaten. The strategy of browbeating people into submission, into believing your beliefs, and, is a left-wing strategy, by the way. It never worked for Democrats. When Hillary Clinton tried to browbeat the country into supporting her over Donald Trump, you're just a bad person. This basket of deplorables. This never, and then prescribing an ism to them, or an idic, right? You're an anti-Semitic, you're a racist, you're a phobist, you're a phobia, you got this, you got Americans don't like that shit. And often, more times than not, you're just going to harden their views or have the complete opposite effect of what you're actually trying to do. So if it is, hey, I don't know that I really want Trump to bomb Iran's nuclear facilities, which, by the way, I guess I don't know. I thought he completely destroyed them. Now they're back. I mean, that's weird. This was always about regime change, and people who were being honest knew that this was all about regime change. And back then, an honest debate about whether or not this was a pointless strike to engage in, because we all know they're not going to be satisfied and they'll come back asking for regime change, was not met with honest, like an honest retaliation, with an argument. I have all of the tweets from Mark Levin attacking me and Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson. What you'll find absent from any of those tweets is an argument. There's never been an argument. I think it's smart to do because. No. It's always name calling. You must be a this. You must be a that. Same shit during the Iraq War. You're unpatriotic. You're a hater. You don't want to liberate people. Must be in your DNA. Maybe your father taught you to be like this, or your parents taught you to be like this, he said. The fuck? Americans will have a knee-jerk rejection response when people do that. And this is this is part of what happened here. If you really cared about the future of the state of Israel, you would have told Mark Levin and others to shut the fuck up. They're hurting you. They hurt you. And that is, in fact, what Barnes and I tried to warn everyone about back in August of 2025. All right, let's play this clip real quick. And then when we come back, I'm going to do more. All right, we'll do more. Here is Barnes and I from August of 2025. Barnes, by the way, who also got called a Jew hater, being the guy who debated Nick Fuentes from the pro-Israel position. He took the pro-Israel, damn near Zionist position against Nick Fuentes years ago. And why? Because Barnes recognizes that young MAGA and younger people under 50 in general are not willing to go to war for Israel and don't even particularly like Benjamin Netanyahu or his government. That's a fact. That's not an opinion. That is a fact. It's an observation that is a fact. They called him an anti-Semite. Here we go. All right. Look, Robert, I'm so glad to do this show because what has it been? About a week and a half ago, was this Axios report, which I knew was coming out because I got a phone call telling me it was coming out and somebody asking me what I thought about the whole thing. And it was unbelievable to me that there were so many in not only the Republican Party, but in the Trump White House that didn't believe that this trend, the change in Americans' views towards Israel is real. They just thought that there was this bottomless pit of support, among Americans. And I was really stunned by some of the people that didn't believe it. Not that there were people, but some of the people, brother. And the truth is, and this is something we'll get into more. I got like a million graphics up here, but this is not it's not new, Robert. Like, it's gotten worse under this whole new thing with Gaza. This is the worst of it all. This is probably over the line, I think it's fair to say, for Americans. But it's not new, right? Am I right? And first of all, how are you?
Oh yeah, so for those that some people were wondering, why this topic. It's an important topic for decisions that are being made in Washington D.C., being made by candidates that are running for office, being made for various advocates on all sides. There's a lot of misinformation and malinformation out there about American public opinion on our involvement with Israel. What role we should play, what role we should not play, when we should be engaged, when we should be disengaged, when we should be directly involved, when we should not be involved at all. That there's a lot of misunderstanding about, especially the evangelical community, a lot of misunderstanding about MAGA. We went through this during the Iran war debate, And we've already seen that, we predicted that Trump would net suffer from this, even in the near short term in his approval rating amongst key groups. That's exactly what's happened.
And it has continued to happen. So I'm going to leave that there. We'll go back to the, and it has continued to happen. It has created this like anger. Like, are you deaf? We didn't want you to do this. And something I said in the beginning of that, and again, it's unbelievable how long ago that clip was. At that time, it wasn't new. So on the thing, it's like, why was this the easiest prediction I ever made? When all of these idiots, again, it's not just a question of, oh, well, I guarantee you some of these people who were, they're bald-faced liars who were saying that's not even true. That's not even true. Young MAGA doesn't dislike Israel. The country's not turning on Israel. Blah, 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 blah. I guarantee you they'll claim today that this was like not that big of a deal. It was a big deal, even back then. And the reason why it was the easiest prediction ever is because of the age signal. This was super easy. I'm going to play clips from when we put this poll out. But again, the reason why is to show you how people didn't believe it. America First Republicans, 20 to 25 years old, 41% sympathy for the Palestinians compared to only 24.5% for Israel. They did everything in their power, include misrepresent the Turning Point straw poll that I conducted. I'm the Turning Point straw pollster in order to try to push back on this very poll. And poll, by the way, at the time, released by Mark Mitchell, that showed very, very similar. I think either Rasmussen never included a neither. I think they never included neither. So the difference between our numbers is literally the fact that some of those neithers have to go somewhere. Or it may be that they don't say both. That may be it. It's been the case for a while that Democrats have been trending toward Palestine, sympathies for the Palestinians. Independents are just about even when we're dealing with, that's not the case anymore. They now sympathize with Palestinians more. You could see, though, a lot of independent, 24%, so even more so than Democrats, said both. Republicans, not so much, 15%, but at the time, 24%. Look at the neither with independents. They just don't give a shit. So understand, when a government is constantly focused on an issue or a country or a situation that they don't give two shits about, you're going to eventually create or meet a little bit of, I think it's fair to call it, resentment toward that situation, toward the people who advance the constant priority of that situation. They sit at home and they say, what about me? What about me? No, I don't think Iran is an imminent threat to the United States, so I don't give a shit. This was the most, not only easily predictable outcome, easily predictable trend. You don't even have to be, I'd love to play around with this now. You don't even have to be Nostradamus to have predicted and seen this coming. This was the only outcome. The only outcome. And people on the right and the Israeli first senators like Ted Cruz and Lindsey Graham, I think, although Lindsey Graham is a little bit more out there, like he's in his own world, but Ted Cruz, perfect example, fully understands his voters don't support this, fully understands that his voters have had a massive shift on where their sympathies lie, doesn't give a shit. He looks at it and he says, well, then we better attack everyone we can in time before we have no more time left. Tucker didn't just pull that out of his ass. What was it, 2 days ago? He didn't just pull that out of his ass. That is what they're saying. We better get as much as we can for Israel out of Donald Trump because we're out of time. Is that what Donald Trump won the election to do? Is that what Donald Trump ran on doing? Is that the Donald Trump? Is that the agenda that won the popular vote for the first time since 04, 20 years? But Republican hasn't won the popular vote. Is that the agenda that did that? Come on, give me a break. And it was always about putting the interest of foreign nations, which they do first. That's going to create a resentment among the voters. Look at this from November of last year. Look at what Bannon is trying to say in response to that poll that we conducted, and ask yourself whether or not they listened. And then ask yourself what's the priority then? Or dare I say loyalties? Where do your loyalties lie? Because at that time, the question was, do you choose your coalition, your own citizens? Donald Trump just the other day, just Tuesday, made a big spectacle on the State of the Union. Mr. President, you said stand up if the job of the government is to put their citizens first. Is it just over illegal immigrants, or is it does that not apply to foreign nations? Because the question back then was, this is the data, which at that time they had already accepted. Who's more important? If you think the Democrats, for example, if you're on the right and you think the Democrats are an existential threat to the survival and their governance, to the survival of the country, then you have to prioritize your coalition and the ability to win elections. If you're putting that in jeopardy, if you are willing to sacrifice that coalition for a foreign nation, you are a foreign agent. End of story. The logic doesn't work any other way. You are willing to sacrifice America first as a coalition, its ability to win, its brand in the mind of the future of our country, for a foreign nation. You're a fucking foreign agent. End of story. Your loyalties don't lie with the country. Either that or you're full of shit and you don't actually believe that Democrats are an existential threat to the country. So which is it? Because you cannot have it both ways.
I need everybody to read this poll. It's a jaw dropper. It's actually very shocking. And I would strongly recommend to the Israel First crowd, and I strongly recommend to the RJC, you should read this poll, you should think about it, and you should contact Richard Barris and talk to Barris about it. Don't immediately say, oh, Barris is anti-Semite. Barris is not. He's just giving you to with the bark on. Richard, where do people go to get you?
As always, Steve, the best places on Locals, peoplespundit.locals.com. Thanks. What choice did they make? What choice did they make? Did they listen to that? Do we remember that conference? He's talking about the Republican Jewish coalition. Do we remember that conference? Where all of us were attacked? Where that poll was attacked? Where young MAGA was attacked? Where Tucker was attacked? Where everybody was attacked? They just went vicious after it. The poll itself was anti-Semitic. They made their decision. And now they're here because they didn't listen. I suggest you all listen, pay attention. Don't, they didn't. They did exactly the opposite of what Steve said. They called me a Jew hater. They called everyone who shared the poll a Jew hater. And they attacked everybody who the poll shows people agree with. It was the dumbest PR strategy I have ever seen a party, a country, a freaking celebrity, anybody adopt. They concluded that they were basically out of time and to just keep going full steam ahead. Because what were they doing when they did this? It's an intimidation tactic. They were trying to shut everybody up so they could get as many wars in, as much more territory for the state of Israel as they could. And they knew that they didn't have the time. They knew they weren't going to change public opinion. Honestly, I'm not convinced that they could not have re-engaged New MAGA and Young MAGA. I don't know why they came to the conclusion immediately that they couldn't re-engage them and rebuild relationships like they have with the Fox Boomer Con on the right. They just decided, fuck you. We want what we want. And anyone who speaks up, we're going to run through the mud. We're going to try to destroy their career. We're going to try to destroy their reputation. Let me explain to you what Americans do when you take that tactic. Fuck you. That's what Americans do. That's the natural American Western reaction, in case you're unaccustomed to it. You know, the one positive thing we did hear over the weekend was about this, that he was trying to end the war, the Russo-Ukrainian war, which he had promised to do when he ran for president. That was the one positive thing we did hear, but majority still say, you know, they wish he would pivot to the domestic. You know, look, I sent you the poll over the weekend about Israel. And in some ways, for people who haven't seen it yet, sympathy for Israel fell to an all-time low. It's about as Israel's about as popular as Antifa is in this country right now. And this is part their fault. It's part the fault of the strategy, the PR strategy. And it's really, I would argue this, and I would tell people they got to keep this in mind. This is voters being angry that they feel that this has supplanted their agenda, that the foreign policy has overtaken what they wanted the president to do when they were in Congress. And I noticed while I was waiting, you put up Jake Sherman's reporting from Punch Bowl. There's a lot. Look, the fighting, the infighting, all of this is contributing to this in some way here, Steve, because you have some members who are trying to redirect and get the agenda back focused on the domestic and where people want it to be. It never ceases to amaze me how voters, if you're a pollster and you do your job and you listen, how voters will tell you what's about to happen, you know, in DC before DC realizes it. And DC has to react to that. So, you know, again, over the weekend, it did get a little bit better this week when we have that question about asking voters what, you know, you want the administration to focus on. But I think that the polling on Israel really is the headline here, because in the graph you just showed, and that's why we wanted to point that out. It's young MAGA, Steve. I mean, the right has to care about the future. Right. I mean, there's going to be people who are phased out of this electorate. That's my nice way of saying their concerns may have been the concerns of the last 10 or 20 years. That was their agenda, their priority. But you have to focus on the future of your movement and what they want. Look at America First. 25 to 29 who identify as America First actually sympathize with the Palestinians more now than they do with Israel. And let me drop this bomb on everybody listening who didn't see this poll. There's a reason for this. We asked whether or not people thought what is happening in Gaza amounts to a genocide. Young America First, and by young, I mean under 50. If you are under 50 and you identify as America First, you think what's happening in Gaza right now is a genocide. I mean, it's genocide plus 8, Steve. What else is there to say? I mean, what else is there to say? Well, I guess what else is there to say is hurry up and start a war before it gets worse. I mean, this is insane. What did you expect to happen? And look, I'm going to go play these clips over and over and over again. There is one more with Barnes I want to do, but look at what Gallup found. Look at this. Look at this. Let me put it up bigger so you guys can see. You don't need to see my mug. American sympathies in the Middle East situation by age. In the Middle East situation, are your sympathies more with the Israelis or more with the Palestinians? Look at 18 to 34. And now with Gallup, ironically, we'll go back and we'll look at the age buckets ourselves. But oh my God, Israel has completely collapsed to 28%. Only Fox News boomercons still have sympathies with Israel. And guess what? It's falling. Look at the graph. Mouth closing. Mouth closing. It's worse again. This is not reversible by buying TikTok, letting Larry Ellison buy TikTok, or have Barry Weiss be the gatekeeper of new corporate media. This is not going to work. Period. And you start a war in Iran, it'll be even worse. Which, listen, every day is a new day. And I think it's fair to say, because I think it's fair to say that, or I think it's fair to defend him. Let me put it this way. I've been very critical of the president lately. The president has not all of a sudden turned into a warmonger. Like, there are other things going on. I do think, however, he has forgotten that he's the president of the United States, that he's the most powerful man in the world. It doesn't matter how many assets they've already moved into the region, Mr. President. You could turn them around tomorrow. You don't have to do it because they have built this thing up like it's a snowball rolling downhill that you can't stop. You can stop it right now. It doesn't matter because there's a lot of concern, and I don't want to get, I got to be careful with what I say here because I still do. I don't want certain people to get mad at me for saying something I shouldn't say in public. But there is a real fear that the Israelis are going to try and goad him into doing this because the president, he has not apparently made the decision. All right. And the reason is because he understands this isn't like last year, which last year wasn't like last year. Honestly, there was always about regime change, but he had different options last year. This is not that. He knows if he moves this time, the Israelis are going to take their last chance because they view it as, look, the way that all of those voters stormed to the polls in 2024 because they view Donald Trump and J.D. Vance as their last chance to stop the decline of their once great empire. The Israelis feel it's their last chance with Donald Trump to get what they want, which is the Greater Israel Project. Let's cut the shit. They've already started to talk to members of the administration about taking parts of southern Turkey. Guys, Turkey is a NATO nation. They've been an important NATO ally since 1952. This is crazy. But the president knows that this is a bigger operation. And he doesn't want it to get out of control. If he was a warmonger, it would have already been done. All right, so I do look at like some of the stuff I see on social media, like X, and they're like, Trump's he's a warmonger now. That's not right. That's not. He is worried about his legacy being the president who let Iran get a nuclear bomb. This is bullshit, Mr. President. It's bullshit. You're believing the deep state who framed you. They've been saying Iran is getting a nuclear bomb for 30 years. We now have Fox News hosts like Mark Levin, without being worried that Fox News will fire him, go live and lie and say there are nuclear-tipped intercontinental ballistic missiles pointing at major cities in the United States. That is a fucking lie. And here's the kicker. Maybe you don't know it, but Americans know it. That's why you can't sell this war. You will never be able to sell this war. They don't even... Guys, before you are willing to spend blood and treasure on somebody or something, don't you have to sympathize with it first? Don't you kind of have to like them first? This will be a total... It's the end of Trump MAGA. The end of it. And if you think I'm being hyperbolic, was I hyperbolic last year when I said if you drop those bombs on Iran's nuclear facilities, your approval rating will never go positive again? Was that hyperbolic? Nope, that happened. When I told you that you will harden views against Israel, was that hyperbolic? Well, look at that chart right there. That's one ugly son of a bitch. That is one ugly ass trend. I don't say these things to be hyperbolic. I know they're true. I know that 6 months or a year or whatever, from the time I'm telling you this, I know I'm going to be sitting there like I am sitting here today going, I told you so, idiot. I already know it. You're not reversing this trend. It's not happening. Not like this. Not going to happen. All right. Ooh, got some stars here. Yeah. I mean, I can't put that super chat on the screen, brother. I can't do that. Even though I fully understand where your sentiment's coming from, I hear it as a pollster every day. I can't put that up there. That is that puts me at risk of being, oh my God, what is with you guys today? Locals. I go to find like a reasonably worded comment. And none of them, it's because you guys are pissed. And I know it's like, how do you think it feels to be me? Like you know it's coming. You do. It's like locals. I told them this. I don't know if I should say this like on a wider audience, because if God forbid something ever happened to the guy, someone's going to get this clip and say like, oh my God, one day the People's Pundit said this. So I don't want to use this analogy, but I will say like, I feel like I'm just watching somebody like walk willingly to their doom, and no matter how much you like try to tell them to course correct and turn around, there is nothing but danger and despair at the end of this path. They don't listen. It's like the worst thing in the world. And that goes for the state of Israel. Netanyahu really screwed you guys here. He did. Americans are never going to take him seriously. They're never going to take him. And this will only get worse. Because if we go back to this age here, okay, that is a decisively negative trend for Israel that is still on the rise. With the 35 to 54, it's more pronounced in the fact that it's happened in such a shorter period of time. So if you look at the 18 to 34, you can see, dating back to like 2022, right when the attack happens, we see, the Hamas attack, we see like a little bit of reversal, but honestly, the sympathy for the Palestinians kept rising. We see a declining trend for Israelis, but it did pop back up shortly after the attack. Not by much. Guys, what is that, 2 points? And then it just goes and starts to crater again. But the sympathy for the Palestinians among this age bucket has continuously and never, it was uninterrupted. Even after the attack, it was uninterrupted. This trend's a little bit different in the fact that it's a little bit shorter and that it wasn't as pronounced. There was this decline leading up until, I guess it's fair to say that the attack, it didn't result in a rebound, but it did result in a slowing of declining sympathies in Israel. Like it stopped the trend from being as accelerated for a very short period of time. But again, similar to what we see with the 18 to 34, the trend toward greater sympathies toward the Palestinians was, it's been steady since immediately after that attack, at least, right? See, like a little bit here. It was 32. Oh, you can see it if I put my note. Okay. So here's 32% in 2023. In 24, it falls from 32 to 24. And this is the period. This is the impact of the attack by Hamas. But this is very short-lived, and then it begins to climb again. We're already back, and the next time they poll this, sympathy for the Palestinians is already back above where it was before the attack. So it's a very much a continuation of this trend. Honestly, it's an acceleration of it. And then now we're at 46 among the 35 to 54. If we look back at the 18 to 34, because I did not know I could show you this, 41% for Palestinians. Then the attack happens. It falls. It is oh no, that is right there tied. Okay, it is tied in 23 at 41. And then Israel continues to decline to 37 the next time they do it. Palestinians just keep going. Like, so again, almost zero interruption from the attack itself. 55 and older, if we go find that one, let me go find it. That's only one from that. Yeah. 65%, which, depends when you're looking. Like they noted themselves during Obama, I think there was this, how can I put it? there was a reaction to how much I think how fast Democrats turned on Israelis had a reverse impact on the rest of the country during the Obama era for a short amount of time. In other words, Obama ran on being a defender of Israel. Yes, I'm pro, blah, blah, blah. And he was significantly, and then Democrats followed his lead, significantly more pro Palestine than I think he ran as. And it made it shock the country for a little bit. But again, that's when we see the high, which is all the way at 74%. We haven't seen that since 2014. This is very clear, right? And then again, you would think there would be this big jump because of the attack, and that's not the case. They got a small marginal bump of 2 points, and then it just kept declining and declining. This will continue. Why? People die. It's like the Republican Party is running as if Fox boomercons are going to be voting forever. People dying, get phased out of the electorate. That's what I was trying to nicely tell Bannon in that interview, in that clip. And they made their choice. The choice, again, let me lay out the logic, real simple for you. If you're on the right and you believe that the left is an existential threat to the country, and you know that continued support for Israel's expansionist policies in the Middle East is unpopular and will cost you votes, will cost you the coalition, war will cost you the coalition, then you have a very obvious choice. The only way that you choose war is because you're either full of shit and you actually don't think the left is an existential threat, or your loyalties don't lie with the country, your country. Your loyalties lie with another country because you're putting the survival of the other country above your own. Maybe I wasn't being clear enough at the time because everybody was hurling around accusations. Trump's presidency is not the only thing on the line if Republicans get wiped out in November. We forget the country elected somebody like Donald Trump because it was in dire straits. It was a last-ditch effort to try to right the ship before the whole damn thing went down. They made their choice. $3:00 already. Damn. All right. I'm going to remove this. I do want to get to, some of the stuff on locals, but it is what it is. And I'll just repeat this by saying this. I think since I said this, it has become more clear than ever. I just want to say this because normally I would never have said this, but I have learned over the weekend, it dawned on me, Mark Levin is a Jewish supremacist. He is. He is an absolute Western European hating Jewish supremacist who has been using the goodwill of Christian charity and, the tenets of the Christian faith to look out for those who are oppressed and to stand up for those who are oppressed. He's a parasite. I'm sorry. He is. He's been sucking the blood out of the goodwill of the American public for an alternate aim. And it dawned on me listening to him when he started rapping other people. And I saw him do it on Twitter before, but I mean, this was a speech, Robert. Steve Bannon. I know Steve. We've both known Steve for years. He would consider himself, certainly at one point, I'm not going to speak for the man now, but at one point absolutely would have considered himself a Zionist in the sense that he supports Israel. And of course, he believes in the Israeli people's right to live and occupy their ancestral homeland, which you and I have done entire episodes about. You debated Nick Fuentes. Now you are using the pro-Israel position. Now you're an anti-Semite. I'm an anti-Semite. Steve Bannon's an anti-Semite.
Mark Mitchell, we're just talking about the same polling data you're
Mark Mitchell's an anti-Semite now. This is crazy.
Anti-Semites. So what? It's like a bad Mel Brooks comedy or something. it's just
You still love Mel Brooks.
But the other thing is, Charlie would have never let them do this on the eve of elections. Charlie would have never let them get distracted in this way, would have called them out. Mark Levin wouldn't have had the guts to go at him. All of these people wouldn't have had the guts to do this at this time or in this manner.
End of story, which is where I want to end the story today. With this, all right? One of the last great things that Charlie did before he died was make sure that those limited airstrikes were in fact limited airstrikes. The people at that time telling you that that's all that was ever on the table, they're liars, period. They lied to you. So if you follow them on Twitter, they tell you to trust Trump and this isn't about regime change. Unfollow them. They're stupid people or they're liars. If it wasn't for Charlie Kirk, it would not have been limited strikes against those facilities. It would have been much, much more. And I'm very disappointed, to say the least, given this is what you sacrificed the coalition for. That trend we just went over with Gallup, that's what you sacrificed the coalition for. Only Jack Posobiec is out there basically on a daily basis reminding everybody that Charlie opposed this war. Charlie opposed this war. I'm honestly stunned nobody else is doing it. We all, look, everyone who knew the guy owes it to him to remind everybody that, especially those closest to him. Otherwise, it was a waste. It was a waste. And Charlie knew this, by the way. He knew it. One of the few people who never doubted that our data was right, that was happening. He could hear it in the voices of the people, his own constituency, in his organization. He saw the handwriting on the wall. He knew why. More importantly, he knew why it was. So I'll leave it at that. It's honestly, I find it very, very concerning. Only Jack feels like he's obliged. He's obliged to speak up and remind everybody of where Charlie stood on this, especially in the end. All right. With that in mind, I'm going to kick rocks. Oh, that's cool. I could put that up there. There is no bad Mel Brooks comedy. That's pretty cool, actually. Yeah. I hear you. That's neat. I didn't know I could even do that. That's actually really cool. I'll remember that. It's just that I can only show you guys, and that's not fair. I need to figure out how to well, it's not me that has to figure it out. It's StreamYard, but bring in Rumble and Locals and the rest of them would be great. We'll also start doing streams to Instagram, by the way. We're going to be putting up clips on there. It's peoples_pundit on Instagram. I put one up the other day, but we're going to be doing like little short clips that are going to go up on Graham and stuff. So don't forget to follow over there. We will stream there. It's just, as you guys know, if you're Instagram users, they don't live on Instagram forever. We can archive them. We can always keep them. But if you don't catch it live, you won't catch it there. But a lot of people do like Instagram. So we're going to stream there going forward. All right. What else? I think that's about it. I didn't put the Massey thing up yet. I will this weekend. We're going to poll Massey's race. I think that's probably one of the more interesting races. Cool new poll up from Qantas in Texas. This is unbelievable. Trump didn't endorse Paxton in Texas. If Yasmin Crockett wins because Trump launches this war, which will put Texas in play. It's already in play, in case nobody's noticed. That's another thing everybody laughed at 5-6 months ago. Well, haha, who's laughing now? Dumbasses. If Crockett wins Texas, Trump can, and then she's there to cast a conviction vote against Donald Trump in a year and a half, he can blame his endorsement team. All right. Which is just god awful. Same thing with Governor Stitz. Everyone's like, you have Laura Ingraham. How do these people win in these states that back Trump overwhelmingly? Laura, why don't you ask the president's endorsement team? Donald Trump endorsed Stitz twice. One of the worst things about Donald Trump's mistakes is his own. These endorsement teams aren't concerned about whether or not the people they endorse are really MAGA or will really support the president in his times of political need, which is coming. All they care about is whether or not they get piece of the action. That's it. It's true. It's true. Sorry. Paxton almost went to jail for supporting Donald Trump. Republicans are having a turnout issue, even despite last-minute parachute operation to get people in. It did shake up turnout a little bit. It is nowhere near where people, including myself, were hoping it would be. And the problem that Texas Republicans are having is that the rhinos want it to be low turnout. They don't want high turnout. Why? Because if it's higher turnout, Paxton's going to beat Cornyn. Herrera's going to beat Gonzalez, who Trump endorsed. They are less concerned about being humiliated, which Democrats will use in a narrative. Why? Because primary voting is extremely predictive of general election outcome. They are hoping that turnout is lower, and they don't care that it will turn into, and I guarantee you, you will see headline after headline after headline about Texas Democrats disproportionately outvoting Republicans if they let that happen. All right. It will be a disaster, and it will be a major PR victory for Democrats going into the fall. Also, Republicans may be able to take some of this in some redder leaning states, but in the battleground states, they can't afford this at all. I don't see a single battleground where Republicans are going to win right now. Not one. Not one. I see states that are battlegrounds that shouldn't even be battlegrounds. And we just spent an hour talking about one of the reasons why that is. Disaffection, disaffection, disaffection. The struggle's real. All right. I'll put up the Massey thing. We'll pull that. We had time to pull it. We didn't have time to pull it in Texas. That Qantas poll does show Paxton ahead. It's not that big of a lead. However, if Paxton can get a surge in the end and some higher turnout in the end, he may be able to make his way to it. I'm not predicting that at all at this moment. I don't like what I see with turnout, and I don't like where I see it. Because Paxton's core base of support is America First Republicans. That includes, in a state like Texas, a ton of newly naturalized Hispanics. They are among the most pissed off people out there right now. Paxton needs them, and I just don't see it. I don't see it. If you remember, Paxton actually humiliated Bush by outperforming him in his own backyard because of those voters. New MAGA, non-white, younger. We'll see. We'll see how it shakes out. All right. Is there a comment I can finally put up here? Okay. All right. I just, maybe other people will too. Rocket Boy said, Rich, listen to Tommy Robinson's message to America with Dave Rubin this morning regarding Texas in particular. You'll get it after you hear it offline. Okay. I got you. I'll check it out. Although, again, I do see Dave Rubin as part of this problem. I was going to show some of these tweets, but holy ratio, Batman. It's like when Mark Levin came after me for this stuff. It's hilarious. The guy has a Sunday show on Fox News. Okay. He's got a nationally syndicated radio show. He's been around for probably 2 decades longer than me. He's got what, 5 or 7.5 million followers on Twitter. I have 355,000, and I absolutely smoked him and ratioed him in these back and forths. You're just a punk and a fraud and a bigot and a loser. And let's see, you trash our history. You guys hate our country, trash our history. He's talking to me, Megyn Kelly, and Tucker Carlson. Oh, and Mark Mitchell is in this thread too. So me, Megyn Kelly, we're all 4 of us are tagged. Me, Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson, and Mark Mitchell. We dance with Islamists. And I just went back at him and I said, wow, burn. I misjudged Mark. He's not an unhinged name caller with no skills and persuasion. He's truly the great one, a master debater. Yeah. And living proof that blood pressure can, in fact, remain under 200 while saving the republic. How will I ever recover? He just was like so unserious to me. Like, am I really being attacked? And Megyn and Tucker, I guess Megyn support, like retweeting the poll or something. And I don't know. This was just like a flurry of, this and that and the other thing. I just want to point out that all of the people who love what Trump is doing and are cheerleading for Trump to go to war were all never Trumpers. It's just a fact. Dave Rubin included. Dave Rubin was a DeSantite in 2024. Mark Levin has never supported Donald Trump. He was a anyone but Trump guy in 2016. He was named 2015's biggest loser because of it. And he was pro DeSantis in 2024. So basically, when Donald Trump needed it, when he was fighting for his political life, Mark Levin was against him. All right. And it's the same thing. It's just true about all of them. You can rattle down. Another one, because I don't punch down, I won't even name him on social media. The guy just rides my dick all day on social media. This guy was a Nikki Haley supporter. Like, it's hilarious. I do think a lot of them, part of it, I think, what's his name? Used to be on the Fox Kirby couch. I think he's right. I think a lot of it just is money. And then some of it's blended with fanaticism and like religious beliefs even, I think Barnes said something that was important in one of the clips that I showed, because it shows you how bad this really is for Israel as far as how public opinion has moved against them. And I'm going to show it really quick, actually. All right. I think it's important to show. All right. Let me share the screen. Let me get the crosstabs up. All right. Let me pop them on the screen. This is from that poll. Where's the direction of country? There it is. Israel-Palestinian conflict, whether or not you think it's a genocide. If we go to evangelicals by race, by age is even better. Once upon a time, you would have seen like 60, 70, 80% support among white evangelicals, and you're not seeing that. It had fallen to 44.8% for Israel, 26%, a quarter of them said neither, and 19% of them said both. I was interested to go back and like look at it. And if you look at evangelicals by age, you'll actually see that 18 to 29-year-old evangelicals are actually not at all sympathetic to Israel. They have a different form of is there supposed to be different forms of Christianity, the gospel? They don't believe in Zionism the way that the older generation does. They don't believe like in what Lindsey Graham said earlier today, which is that if we don't fight wars for Israel, then God will abandon us. They don't view it that way. They're very much more in line with what Charlie believed, which is that Christians value all human life. And I mean, doing violence in Christ's name is not Christian. I'm not going to sit up here like I'm a pastor and preach to you, but you're reading the wrong gospels. I don't know what version you got. This is a man who was raised under Roman occupation, and he still didn't pick up arms to fight Israel's enemies. And that was actually Israel. Those are actually Israel, like not Benjamin Netanyahu pretending to be Israel. Like that was actually Israel. Yet we're supposed to believe, or we're supposed to be mad at younger evangelicals for not believing that God wants you to like take up arms against Israel's enemies. They don't believe it. So if you can't convince the younger evangelical right to go along with this plan to speed up the return of God, I don't know how it's over. You've lost. That's it. You lost a year ago. You just didn't want to hear it. Tucker has won this argument, which is why Tucker is only because they hate Tucker over it. That's what this is all about. That they all have known Tucker for years and years and years. Mike Huckabee himself, he's known Tucker for years. And this group of people is willing to stab their best friend in the back if they don't get total fealty. And that just never was going to be a winning strategy. You never had that power. You never had that much power to be able to do that. It's just, I'm sorry, you just were delusional. You should have checked the data before you decided to do this. And I just don't think you're going to recover now. Because again, if events don't change, this is how the future will go. Donald Trump will have a very turbulent second term. He might not even make it through it. If he's removed by the Senate, which is possible at this point, very possible. If he is removed by the Senate, there'll be nothing. The last year and a half will be spent going after JD for certain things I'm not going to get into right now, even though I think it will be unfair. That's how it will be spent. The administration will end with a lot of turmoil, like the first one did, only not even needing COVID, and a Democrat will be elected easily in 2028. That Democrat will be free to do whatever they want in the Middle East conflict situation. And we know that Democrats are not at all sympathetic to Israel, and their base will demand Israel be punished for what they have done in Gaza. It will be awful for Israel. And this is the road they have chosen. And you expect young MAGA to rise up and defend you after you took their last chance to right their country in the way that they saw fit? You're fucking delusional. You're delusional. It's not happening. By that time, Israel will be politically toxic. No one will want to hang out with Netanyahu. He's not getting anywhere near the White House, let alone 7 visits in 1 year. Sorry, that's your future. And God knows how bad that 4 years is going to be before, Americans have a chance to try to right the ship again in 2032. It'll be, if there's anything to write, if there's anything left to write at that point. All right. Like I said, I'll get the Kentucky 4 thing up. We'll get rolling on it. I know I said I was going to do it Wednesday, but I will today, and I'll share it. And that's it. This was the most easy prediction I have ever made my entire career. And it's a prediction that's like 2.5, 3 years in the running now, publicly. It was easy. And if you added, you don't have to be the People's Pundit to look at age signal and know where something's going. And it's not going to be reversed like this. So on the eve of likely war, this is what they're going to sacrifice the Trump coalition for. Simpletons. Maybe we do deserve what we get, guys. Maybe we do. That's the truth. I'm a Jefferson fan. Maybe you do deserve it. All right. All the best, guys. I will see you on the way to the gym, Road Rage with Rich, on Locals. Thanks, guys. All the best.